This is the quest for the most rare item in Destiny 2. It comes from Castle Content, and it's actually their last Destiny video ever. A big credit to them for letting me watch and react to this. If I had to give some early predictions though, because I've obviously been playing this game for 20,000 hours, I imagine it's probably going to end up being the Fate of All Fools, which is a 1/1 exotic. But let's go ahead and jump in and watch this and see what they have to say.
I've been playing Destiny for nearly 10 years now, long enough that I run this channel named Castle Content, and this is my final video covering it, where I documented my journey in finding the rarest items to ever exist in the game. I started this project a year ago, and it's gone from being on track to on hold to there and back again, far more times than I'd like to admit. I went in with no expectations other than trying to be careful with ownership rates. I certainly dive into that side, but wanted to include stuff that we can't really track, and more importantly, interview the person involved to hear their story. I hope you enjoy, because I most definitely loved learning about them. And to really showcase the journey, I'll be giving context into the significance of each item by following the game's timeline, starting all the way back in 2017. This is the tower.
All right, so the first thing I need to mention is that he's looking for the most rare item in Destiny 2's history, not just Destiny's history, which is a little bit less of a broad topic. Obviously, there's some really rare items in Destiny 1. So if we're just going to talk about Destiny 2, then we have 2017 till now. And I like the topic, though. I like where he's going with this. I'm actually really curious to see what is the most rare item in Destiny 2. Feel free to comment down below with your predictions.
Humanity's last stronghold after hundreds of years of being driven back by alien invaders. Placed at the top of a wall protecting the last city, the tower is a main community hub for all Guardians, which is you, the player. Whether you spent 5 hours in-game or 5,000, this is what players called home for the entirety of Destiny 1. With the launch of Destiny 2, however, it's under attack.
Battle stations!
Zavala accidentally hits the Fist of Havoc.
Now!
Now, as a Guardian, you're a protector of the last city, and you're on your way there to try and help.
Anyone home? No response on any channels. Remember when I told you that you fly too fast? Forget I said that. Fly fast.
You land boots on the ground doing your best to fight off the invading forces, and you realize the vault has been destroyed. The space storing everything you'd built up over the course of the first game is gone. Even your
RIP to the Red War campaign.
Armor, which is the truest form of expression that players have in Destiny, is now limited to what you're wearing, the lowest rarity and weakest set imaginable. After fighting your way through waves of enemies, you realize the only way to stop this fight is to board the enemy's flagship.
Someone told me you need a ride. All right,
RIP Amanda Holiday.
Guardian. Time to kick him where it hurts.
You make your way through, finding Dominus Gall, the leader of the attack, and you lose.
How do we come back from this?
You don't. Welcome to a world without light.
Guardian, something's wrong.
Damn.
After being kicked off the ship and falling like a Spartan through space, you land in the burning grounds of that last city that you swore to protect. Your armor took quite a beating from the fall. The gauntlet's been ripped off, damage is everywhere, and even the names have changed. This isn't different armor, but rather what you had before has literally changed into this. And to put it into perspective, Destiny isn't like other games with item durability. Armor in this game does not have stages of damage, so the simple fact that this sequence even took place was unique in itself. Still to this day, it's the only time to ever happen. This was
okay. So if he's talking about the wrecked armor set, I would say that is a pretty rare item, especially now that the Red War campaign has been sunset. But certainly there's a good amount of people out there that have that. Feel free to comment down below if you saved that. I personally didn't save it. Kind of wish I did. I didn't save it, but I'm sure there's a good amount of people that have that.
Was my first item to chase. Is there anyone out there who's kept this armor over 7 years? After searching through many communities across the game, I found a few who did. Out of pure nostalgia, they literally kept the whole set in their vault since
I know a couple
day
people.
one. I was lucky enough to get to inspect it in-game, and something interesting was the fact that they're all 0 power. In Destiny, that's the system for showing how strong your Guardian is in activities, and the minimum is supposed to be 1600. I started asking about this, and it seems that this is the only set out there that's just permanently set to 0 power. After talking a while, he helped me realize how hard it is to find nowadays because you can't actually go back and even get this if you wanted to. That entire sequence I walked you through from the game's launch campaign was completely removed in 2020. We're going to talk more about those removals later, but for now, pay attention to the armor on screen. After weeks of searching for the damaged armor, someone actually replied with the undamaged set. This is on their account today, and it had me pretty confused. Like, how could someone have that super clean,
He has that set? That's actually crazy.
undamaged armor when it was replaced with the wrecked armor in that first mission from falling off the ship?
Wait
You
a
can't
minute.
just not get thrown off. It's a cutscene. I needed to figure out how they did it, and he was willing to have an interview with me, so please welcome Freddy. Would you mind putting it on? Like, you're saying you have the undamaged set, and I really want to see this in game. I'm going to inspect you as well.
Yes, I do.
He's very excited.
Oh
about it.
my
He's
God.
like, yes, I do.
Okay, that's actually
looks so
really
clean.
clean.
That
Love that.
being undamaged was the exact reason that I wanted to get it.
Holy.
That's
Have you
nice.
had these literally since 2017? Like, have you had
That
these
for
since then,
resilience.
or what's the deal?
I have had these definitely.
Okay, this is crazy. Comment down below if you actually saved this. I don't know what he had to do. Like, if you have to do that mission and get your armor destroyed, what do you do to not do that mission? I'm so confused how he pulled this off.
Since before the vaulting happened, because I did have to be in the mission, in the Red War campaign mission, very first one.
Right.
Oh, he probably launched the mission and then put on a different armor set, swapped it off, and then, okay.
To actually grab these.
Okay, so this isn't from 2017. Like, this, you didn't just kind of like start it, accidentally cancel out of the game, and then come back years later. Like, you actually made a conscious effort to go back and get these.
Exactly. I did not do this accidentally. I did do this intentionally.
That's different from what I would have anticipated. How exactly did you do it? I feel like I don't understand. How did you manage to actually snag these?
I had to obviously launch in the mission,
Right?
because when we launched it, we started out with this set undamaged. For one character, I had to then just, it must have been with Destiny Item Manager already, because I don't think we could have accessed the vault back then. But I did have those other things in my vault, then moved it to this character and changed the
Yeah,
armor, which
makes
means
sense.
that I then played the first mission with blue and green gear and moved all this non-damaged stuff back into my vault. That is how it stayed undamaged.
Hold on.
Very
See,
cool.
you would have had to have deleted, like, you deleted the character
Exactly.
in order to get into that intro mission to get the undamaged set actually onto your character.
Oh,
I deleted my
very
Titan
slick.
back in the day. I think I had like 300.
Very sick. Do you see how you have to start with a Titan? You'd have to get a full set from head to class item of blue or green rarity gear. And then after you got that rarity gear, you would take it off your Titan, put it in the vault, delete your Titan, start a new Titan. And then when you launch that very first mission, take that blue and green gear, put it on the character, equip all of those items, and then take the undamaged gear off. Very slick, very smart. That's pretty cool. And that's super rare.
100 hours on my Titan already.
Okay.
I then also deleted several other ones because I did not just want to have it on my Titan. The Hunter set was what actually intrigued me to do it.
And then the game just does, it just lets you do that? Like, you just,
I'm pretty sure that I had to pull out the green stuff in before I started the characters.
so what would you say is like the number one motivator? Like, you did all of this truly not knowing what would happen. Is the game just going to auto damage it? Is it going to delete it? And you mentioned something about your Hunter, but was it like you wanted an extremely rare set, or was it more like you wanted that pristine aesthetic?
It was all just Destiny. It was
It was drip.
simply purely Destiny. Now that my mind is racing back, I think there was actually a website with all the armor sets on it. I saw that set and I was like, I must have it.
Yeah, you had to delete multiple characters to get that.
Exactly.
Nice.
That's commitment for the drip game, my friend. That's amazing.
Looks so good though.
How many people do you think actually have this set? And particularly, how many people do you think have actually gone through what you went through or even have the 3? Like, I've never met anyone with what you're talking about.
Obviously, this is just a step in the dark. But I'm gonna say it's probably just a handful who actually have this set, and then even less who did it intentionally on all 3 characters.
Yeah, like that's...
It probably is one of the rarest things to do, mostly because why the hell would you do that? I just did it. I was like, heck it, let's try if I can extract that undamaged set from the mission. And it was a mission successful.
I ended up getting to compare the 2 sets in game, and it's truly remarkable how unalike they are. The fact that one is 0 power, but the other one isn't, and then how both GT and Freddy had completely different origins on why they did it. Getting to do this gave me a real taste of finding something rare, so I was determined to see what else would be out there, but I knew I couldn't just go mission by mission. That would take forever, and what stood out to me was the fact that something so trivial like how those default sets were given to everyone out there could actually just become rare due to the circumstances of its source being removed. That's where I shifted my focus next. Vaulted content. In November of 2020, Bungie removed entire sections of the game. That campaign mission I showed you was gone, old activities or quest lines were gone, and even entire locations such as planets were taken away. Io, Titan, Mercury, Mars, and Leviathan. These were open worlds you could free roam to fight enemies, complete activities, and obtain rewards. Usually, there'd be some kind of obscure currency or item that eventually became obsolete when their locations were taken away. But what actually happened to those physical items? Some of them were just snapped out of players' inventories, never to be seen again. Some items, however, completely survived. You can't do anything with them, but I'd heard of players intentionally keeping these things in their game, whether it was materials or currencies, because they're...
What are we going to search for the absolute most rarest item in someone's inventory? Very interesting. I'm sure I have some old relics sitting back there.
They're some of the only connections we have left to those original planets. I wanted to see for myself, so I asked my community Discord to show me everything they had from those original planets that they kept out of pure nostalgia. It was a fun experiment because some of it I had completely forgotten about, like entirely out of my memory by now. So here's some of what I saw. Adam, for example, intentionally kept their blue planetary materials. We're used to seeing green ones now, and you can even see that he actually has both the blue and green version of Dusklight shards. Not only that, he still has Seraphite from Mars and Alkane Dust from Titan, despite their planets being removed. Koga still has these scout report items to help you find chests on a planet. You used to buy them from Cade, but they eventually got turned into ghost mods years ago. Linguini still has all their old planetary tokens that used to be used for leveling up a local vendor, and even has one of those old Eververse bounty notes. Years ago, you'd get steadfast engrams like our current Eververse ones, which would reward cosmetics as well as these bounty notes. These would then be used to purchase task-based bounties to get bright dust. My head's spinning just talking about it. This last one isn't a currency, but certainly stopped me in my tracks when Zugashi showcased their full suite of the Leviathan raid layer ornaments, which are all unobtainable now. While all of these were great, I still couldn't shake this idea I got from my talk with Freddy. The fact he ended up with something super rare by intentionally stopping his progress, like not continuing that mission until he'd stored that precious armor away. Couple that with all the vendor stuff I'd just seen, and it got me thinking about quests in Destiny. Like many other games, these include a distinct set of tasks that you need to complete in order to obtain a set reward. This type of thing wouldn't normally draw any attention because the rewards aren't usually of notable rarity. Everyone gets the same reward and moves on with their game. But that got me thinking about exotic quests and how some of them required upgrade progression. A perfect example of this is the Necrochasm. After beating Crota's End, you get an exotic quest line and default white weapon called Husk of the Pit. Throughout the quest, you would complete some steps and watch your weapon upgrade towards the eventual exotic. The fact that there were multiple versions of it made me realize that in year 1 of Destiny 2, we were given an exotic progression quest that no longer exists. After completing the game's first raid, Leviathan, a quest called Imperial Invitation dropped, which eventually rewarded you with a heavy ammo exotic shotgun called the Legend of Acrius. The first version you received was totally empty. No perks at all, just like a blank screen almost. You could shoot it, but really it was just there to entice you to complete the quest and convert it into the real one.
That's funny.
Thinking along the lines of how Freddy's armor was so rare thanks to not completing something, what if there was someone out there who didn't finish this Acrius quest? Someone who has that old unfinished version
procrastinator.
but can't complete it because the Leviathan has been removed from the game and therefore can't do all the steps. You see, new players today have to buy the upgraded version outright, so technically it's impossible to even get that base version nowadays. I made a bunch of posts trying to see if anyone had friends out there who may have taken a break around that time, and honestly, I kind of gave up at first thinking Bungie probably just wiped any incomplete versions from people's inventories. A while later on though, someone actually responded, and it's way more interesting than I even thought it could be.
No
So
way.
welcome Stardust. When did you actually start playing Destiny? What was it, Destiny 1? Was it Destiny 2? Like, when did you begin?
So I started playing Destiny 2 around October 2019. That was when Shadowkeep launched. And I think eventually over time, I just did the quest for Acrius in the Leviathan raid, and I got this preliminary version, so never completed the questos.
Yeah, I find that really intriguing. Like, why was it just don't care to finish it? Got other things going on? Like, why didn't you actually finish the quest?
I was very busy, so I was pretty new to the game, and I was trying to get other exotics before the quest got sunset with Beyond Light. And so Season of Rivals, I was really working on those things. This was not really a priority for me at the time, and I also was a little busy with other stuff, so I never got around to finish it.
Okay, so what
That's
is
funny.
the main difference between like your version and the actual fully upgraded version?
So, well, first of all, obviously this is just the preliminary version, so you cannot have catalysts or anything. And some other weird things are actually that there are no perks like the barrel perks. They're not there. They're not shown.
Okay, wait, what about the fact that I'm trying to check out the ornaments right now? Like if I inspect again, yeah, like I can see the lore, but I can't go down at all. Like,
Doesn't let you, yeah.
so what's that all about? You can't put anything on it?
Doesn't let me put on any ornaments. I don't own any, but if I did, it still
Weird.
wouldn't let me. It doesn't even show me that screen at all.
You can't even go down to that menu?
Pretty bizarre. Additionally, it appears to say that I have 4 in the magazine, but I only have 1 because that's what the original version before you upgraded it in the quest was. It's just 1 in the magazine.
Okay, hold on. Can we just follow me? I want to see you grab this power, and then I want to see your perspective. Like, you can just shoot one and you hit reload and nothing happens? Like, what?
Yep. I shoot 1, I reload, and I'm mashing the reload button, but it only lets me reload 1 in. So that's pretty crazy to me, honestly. 'Cause it shows it has 4, but it doesn't.
Yeah, it's
Can
just
you
straight up a
infuse it?
different
Can
variation.
is it stuck at 1600?
Yes, it's stuck. I cannot infuse it at all. Doesn't even show me the infusion icon thing.
Wow.
And something else is that you actually you cannot move it to your vault. Normally, when you try
What?
to store it, instead of storing it, it'll equip it either in game or using Destiny Item
Very
Manager
odd.
or any other sort of third-party app. You cannot move it to your vault. It doesn't let you.
All right, if that was the case, and this item is literally stuck in my inventory and has been for like 5 years, I'm deleting this thing. There's no way I'm just always rocking a preliminary Acrius forever and never being able to clear my inventory. That's funny though.
Sorry. This game. That's amazing. What does your collections show?
Oh yeah, collections does not show it as acquired at all because I don't have technically the full version of it.
This is truly unique. What's kept you from deleting it? Like, is it a rarity thing? Like, how come you hung on to this the whole time?
Yeah, so I thought part of it was I just thought at first, I thought, well, I want to keep this version until I get the full version just because I want to have it. But then later on, I realized, hey, this is actually a very rare item. I don't think a lot of people have this, so I thought I'd keep it just for, the novelty of it.
Yeah, that's cool. I have this weird feeling like you might be the only person on the planet
Might be.
with this situation going on.
I mean, I'm sure there's probably someone who has it. I mean, there are millions of Destiny players, so I could totally see someone who, maybe quit the game and they still have it in their inventory, but they haven't played in several years. I think I might be the only person who still has just been postponing, who still kind of plays the game actively, but just has it in their vault, just because I've been postponing on getting the, procrastinating on getting the real
He's
version.
still
Right, I
procrastinating.
feel like you might be
10 years from now, Stardust still hasn't finished his Legend of Acrius quest.
the only person who is just fully aware that they have this rare item. I also wonder what's going to happen, like when you go to get it from the kiosk. Are you just going to have both versions?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd probably add both versions, although I could see maybe the game just deleting the old version. I'm not sure though. I really don't
thought
know.
it gives
Error
you
code
both.
Bungie.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time and even like popping into this private match. Thanks for showing me. This is really cool. After finding those unique stories from the launch of
Nice.
the game, I was ready to move on to the first expansion known as Curse of Osiris. The population of players at that time was becoming fairly low, and yet I remember some of the coolest ornaments being from around then, so I had a hunch there'd be something worth chasing there. For example, Destiny used to host something called faction rallies. They were these week-long events that only happened a few times within a season.
There might be some
You'd
rare
have the
stuff
option
in
to
this.
pledge yourself to either Dead Orbit, Future War Cult, or New Monarchy.
Shout out Dead Orbit. The best orbit.
Once doing so, you'd grind out specific activities to earn currencies and then eventually acquire all kinds of cosmetics. What stood out in my memory was a particularly unique set of ornaments that I remember thinking looked incredible. They went by the name of Superior Vision. The problem though is that memories can be distorted. Like, how rare would that actually be? I started asking some of my buddies and they reminded me about a little Discord bot named Charlemagne. This might be something you've seen in some Discord servers out there that are dedicated to Destiny. It can pull statistics of all kinds, and just so happens that the owners of this bot also run a website called Warmind, the same name of the expansion that I was digging into. The website taps into Bungie's database of items across the entire player base. It's non-invasive, completely safe, and just very cool. I immediately looked for those old ornaments that I could remember because I needed to see if maybe I had something special, and there they were. The Superior Vision's chestplate clocking in at a 0.104% ownership rate. Reading that certainly feels rare, but compared to the items I'd found so far, I really wasn't sure, and that's when I learned that this is calculated based on 66 million accounts, meaning 68,000 people have this. It's certainly rare, but not rare enough.
68,000, that's not like... I feel like we're talking about the most rare item in Destiny. It's got to be like... There's got to be something out there that's like less than 10 people have it, right? Like if there was an item like that, that's rare. Less than 10 people, or maybe if you're just straight up the only person that has one of something. That would be really cool to see, like the global rarity of that.
For what I'm chasing, and that's when I remembered that this was also the era of some Trials of the Nine cosmetics. Trials of the Nine was the successor to Destiny 1's Trials of Osiris PvP game mode. The original required you to win 9 matches in a row, also known as a flawless card, to gain access to the Lighthouse. Back then, however, you could apply certain buffs to your Trials card with in-game currency like a free win, a double win, and the iconic Mercy buff giving you a free loss. This effectively made it a 7-game winning streak to work, so when Bungie brought Trials of the Nine into Destiny 2, they just made it a straight 7-game card instead of 9, but with no mercy. It proved to be much harder on the general player base than anticipated, meaning the loot at the end of the tunnel was much rarer, and one of the achievements of that was obtaining a unique set of prestige ornaments. I even had a laugh when doing some of the research.
That set looks so clean. Love that set.
On this because I found a post saying to come across a player wearing Trials prestige ornaments today is like running into a unicorn. To get these ornaments, you didn't just go flawless and call it a day. Each individual piece required a specific task, like the chest piece needing 50 wins and a flawless card, the boots needing 500 defeats across a flawless card, but the helmet, that was the one on everyone's mind. To get that one, you needed to go flawless on 7 separate occasions within a window of time. To put this into perspective, only 1 in 50 people playing today even have an achievement for going flawless in Trials of the Nine once. So out of all the people who ever attempted...
Weirdly, I played a ton of Trials of the Nine. I might have this set. I'll have to check.
Who actually did it enough times to get every one of these pieces? 0.033% of Destiny's population did, including a gentleman by the name of Scaro9. Scaro, thanks for joining me, man. A lot of people I've talked to, pretty much everywhere I've searched, they have wanted this set, or they have pieces of this set, but never got the helmet. And I'm just curious, how did you go about getting it? Did you have friends at the time that you would play with? Did you go in lone wolf? And just overall, what was it like going for the prestige ornament set?
Yeah, so I wouldn't consider myself a PvP main. I just remember, like, I specifically remember this with comp, and I'm sure it happened with Trials too. It was kind of hard to get like that many people on, because with Trials of Osiris and Destiny 1, we had like our set rotations that we like to play, and we know who did what and who played well together. And so with that switch, I remember it being kind of difficult.
So back then, you kind of mentioned like there was a lot less people and it was harder to get people to play. You needed 4 instead of 3. Like, you know, the challenge I think was pretty daunting for a lot of people. But I sometimes wonder, like, if you had to go back in time and try and do it again, or just if that challenge was to come up today, do you think it would be easier or harder?
I think it'd be way easier today. Trials is a lot more forgiving, like with mercies and stuff. We didn't have that in Trials of the Nine. And back then, Trials tended to be quite sweaty. I mean, Trials of the Nine had some of the lowest populations across the board, if I recall correctly.
You know, just in meeting you and kind of researching a little bit about the work that you've done and whatnot, like you're obviously a bit of a collector. I'm curious how you feel about like earnable cosmetics, in particular armor, right? Ornaments. So back then, like having this thing to chase, this prestige Trials ornament armor set was pretty amazing, and to this day still considered one of the cleanest sets. But we don't really get a lot of that nowadays. So I'm just really curious kind of what you think of that evolution and where we're at today.
Yeah, I miss it. I think Destiny had a lot of faults, and Destiny 1 had a lot of faults, you know, back in the first 4 or 5 years of the franchise. But one thing the, let's say, Luke Smith era of Destiny did really well was kind of these chaseable cosmetics. And I know a lot of people get really upset with like FOMO and stuff, but I think the reality is in a game, a looter shooter, especially a live service one, some degree of that is really healthy as long as it's not too aggressive. And
I agree with that, and especially when the FOMO is in regards to just cosmetics, like it doesn't actually give you power in the game. It's just like, hey, here's this crazy ornament you can get if you're willing to just do the most absurd thing, the most absurd grind in the game, and it has no impact on like your gameplay, or like it's not like the most powerful hand cannon is locked behind some crazy challenge.
I think things like these armor sets, I think they were great incentives to get people to play the game. The 2019, I believe, Solstice of Heroes armor sets, the ones that you haven't been able to earn since. These sorts of things are among my favorite examples of cosmetic rewards in the history of Destiny. It seems like a lot of effort and thought went into these rewards, even though Bungie was probably aware not that many people were going to get them.
Literally this set.
I think this is like the best example of this. Yeah, nowadays, I think if we got an armor set like this, it'd probably end up in Eververse.
Yeah, good point.
They just don't really do stuff. There's not really a cosmetic grind anymore. And I do, as a collector and as someone who just loving being immersed in the game, like every aspect of me really loves these really just crazy grinds for stuff like that. So
I have another question for you then. So I think I know the answer because you're a bit of a collector, but you know, let's rewind the clock to 2017. So Trials of the Nine launches. You're decent at PvP, but it's not really your main thing. PvE is sort of where you really immerse yourself. But they announced the armor, right, in season 1, and they announced these special ornaments, right, the non-flawless but also the flawless glowing prestige versions in season 2. So is this one of those things where you felt like, I always play Trials, I'll just get it eventually, or is the cosmetic what really drove you to that playlist?
that's an interesting question. If something's added to the game, I'm getting it. That's just my mentality. That's how it's always been. Like I just enjoy playing the game.
Yeah.
But it's definitely like, oh, I'm having fun with Trials, maybe I'll play in a few weeks or whatever, versus if they add something, I'm in there day one. Like I'm grinding this stuff out as quickly as possible.
Okay, so Scarrow, I'm really curious, you know, something along these lines and within this game's timeline, like early on, are there any other examples that you can think of sort of like this prestige armor set? Like we just talked about how the chase for these earnable cosmetics really helps, you know, the health of the game. Is there anything like that you can think of that really was just wild to kind of go after?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I reference a lot, actually, because like I mentioned, I think that area of Destiny, or that time of Destiny, was really, really good at this. And so there's a couple examples. There was the Knight's Peace Ghost Shell in Trials of the Nine, one of the most unique ghost shells, especially for the time they've ever done. And more of the kind of chasey examples that
I have that ghost shell. Subtle flex.
I appreciate as an endgame player from around that time. You had like the secret puzzle ship in the Whisper mission to get like 1,000 wings. That ship has never been earnable. Taken version of the OG King's Fall ship. Beautiful cosmetic reward.
They just brought it back, right? A variation of that, didn't they? Or was that I'm trying to remember. I thought they did just bring that back.
I think one that did it really well was the Armory Forge shell from Niobe Labs. Not a lot of people interacted with that content, and that's a super rare cosmetic that they've never brought back. But the most perfect example of this, in my opinion, is going to be the ornament from Season 3, I believe, of Radrix's Claymore. Not a lot of people were playing comp at the time, and Bungie tried really hard, you know, with Radrix's Claymore being introduced, being a super specific, really powerful weapon that you had to play comp for. And then if you
back when Desperado was ridiculously good, this weapon ruled the Crucible for a period of time. This will definitely be a very rare ornament.
Hit 5500 that season, the max rank, you also got an exclusive ornament that only like a couple hundred people have, Glory and Grandeur.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who really struggled or talked about just how insane that was. So okay, I will do some digging. That's a really good point. All right, well, hey, thanks a lot, man.
Sounds great. Have a good night.
With Scarrow's recommendation, I moved from Season 2's Curse of Osiris into the third season, Warmind, when that Redrix Claymore was first introduced. Bungie piloted the concept of bringing an extremely unique weapon to work towards outside of RNG, eventually coining the term Pinnacle Weapon. They were intended to be the best of the best, bar none, and only available for limited time periods. The Redrix Claymore was exactly that, an earnable pulse rifle in the Crucible's competitive playlist. With a total of 6 levels ranging from Guardian all the way up to Legend, you had to reach Fabled for the pulse rifle to drop. This in itself was difficult for people considering you dropped points from losses, and a Reddit post even blew up explaining how many games it would take depending on your win rate. If you were winning 2 out of every 3 matches, it would still take nearly 200 games. If you only had a 50% ratio, it would take over 400, but then if you dipped below that, it could take up to 2,000 matches for the average person to try and get this. Around 0.03% of people managed to do that, but this was
0.03% managed to get that. Jeez.
Still around 20,000 people. And you see, the real grind was the secret Bungie alluded to at the release of it for those who could push their rank to Mythic.
It says that global rarity 0.001. Whoa.
The elusive Glory and Grandeur ornament.
I have that too. I have that. I can show it to you.
Was obtained by only 632 people total, and I had the pleasure of interviewing one of them to hear about it. Kamikakes, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate you coming down and showing me this extremely rare item that only 600 people in the history of Destiny have. And you played all of D1 all the way through right into D2, and you've played all of D2 if I'm not mistaken, correct?
All the eras, very little breaks.
Right. Okay, so what would you say the number one thing has kept you engaged? Is it PvP, PvE, or cosmetics as part of either? Like, what would you say has kept you engaged?
I would say at first it was PvE because Destiny was a game that mixed like elements from, let's say, Halo and the Phantasy Star series. And so I would do all sorts of unnecessary things thinking it would affect drop rates, right? I'd be like, let's solo this Nightfall and see if there's a new variant of a weapon. Just because I wanted to see what would happen. Like, that was the kind of curious player I was.
Why is it like every single time I talk to literally anybody about this era who played at the time says this is one of the hardest chases that they are even aware of? And of course, it kind of shows in the numbers, but what made it so hard?
So I feel like an old man recanting all these stories, but I would boil it down to 3 things. Number 1, the meta. Number 2, the queue times. And then number 3, weirdly, the motivation to do recovs from the greater PvP population for the top players.
Oh, wow.
Really a
Recovs were insane. The population was ridiculously low. That is part of the contributing factor to this. If it happened during a more popular time, obviously this is during the time when like Destiny 2 was almost completely dead, like Bungie was about to go under. So that's part of the reason why. I would say that's probably one of the largest contributions as to why this was so rare.
affected the whole vibe and the way things went down. So I guess I'll start with meta, right? It's Wormhusk, Graviton Lance, V-Wing, and then what I'm wearing right now, the Synthoceps. And this is because double primary, you dive and you get the Syntho bonus and you just one-tap hunters who would otherwise dodge to get their health back, and your whole team gets an overshield.
Yeah, that's fair. But it's a good point about double primary. Just such a different game back then. I mean, it was...
Well, now we have checkmate modifier, right? And so you kind of see that solved formula from back back then still gets results today. So some things change and some things definitely stay the same. So the next thing was the queue times, right? So we have the mongoose error code. If you search for long enough and it cannot find opponents, you get sent back to orbit with an error code called mongoose. I believe it's like 10 minutes that it triggers, maybe 15 minutes. But we would get 2 or 3 of those in a row and just be like, well, is there no one else to play?
Wow.
Then we started thinking, it was the BattleNet client at the time, Blizzard, right? It had different servers. So it had an Asia server and a Europe server. And so after we'd run out of NA opponents, we'd go to Asia. And then we'd find NA teams hiding, trying to get the preload. We'd be like, oh, there you are. There's our matches. And so we'd match everybody on Asia for a few hours. And then we'd get mongooses again. And then we'd go to Europe. So it was like a world tour.
So I heard queue times were like,
This was such a bad time to be a Destiny player. Like, if you think things are bad now, it was, the population of everything was abysmal. It was literally this bad. You would queue in, wait for 10 minutes and get error codes, and people would still be online playing this damn game somehow.
upwards of half an hour sometimes, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes.
Oh, even more. Could be 45 minutes.
Yeah. So
and the worst part about it all is you would be cold.
Right. You don't get into a rhythm.
And then you would go from cold to immediately playing the best teams in the world at the lower ranks. And so you had to do this all the way up.
Oh my God. That's absurd. I can kind of understand now if they're like, okay, I'm going to sit down and play for 3 hours. You might get 4 matches.
That was the reality. We played a lot.
So I'm kind of curious now. A lot of people in this game feel like cosmetics and earnable items are a big help on motivating to do things. So I'm kind of curious what you think about that and how that maybe influenced even you or some of your friends.
Well, first of all, I'm going to say I don't speak for the entire PvP community, Destiny community, or even the niche comp scenes, right? I speak for myself on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a degree of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation for a healthy comp playlist. Little ornaments like this, I think, go a long way on the extrinsic for players that otherwise would have never found out that they even like PvP in the process of improving. And then for players like myself, I don't need any rewards. I just need a good comp system.
I feel you there. Do you mind just taking the ornament on and off in your screen? Like I'm inspecting it right now. I kind of want to see.
So I don't know what happens. I have 996 of them in my mod tab.
Oh my God. Sorry. Well, hold on. You said 996?
Yeah. It's not like I did the comp thing that many times.
Okay. That's so good.
I just sat at the vendor for that long because I was like, yeah, this is definitely, when I heard the announcement of the broadsword, right? I was like, yeah, I'm buying 1,000 of these. I don't know how many broadswords I'm going to go through.
Oh my God.
And now I'm going to take the ornament off.
So you haven't done this
ever?
Wow.
Yeah, why would I take it off?
Yeah.
It's like asking a competitive gamer to shower or something like it.
Yeah, go touch grass. Okay, that was cool. I saw it change and you haven't done it since. It's funny because it obviously looks good without it, but it really is so clean and so nice with it.
Oh, it does use the ornament. I'm now down to 995.
That's amazing.
All right, so that means I can only do this type of video for 900 other creators.
Right, no one else is allowed to ask you. I do have one final question. Is there anything else on your account that you think is either really, really rare or just something you're like particularly
This is a good question. I'm sure he has some rare stuff. I'm curious to hear what he has to say.
proud of earning?
I mean, I do a couple self-imposed challenges, but for the era-appropriate stuff, check my inventory right now. We got the Annie of D, the button, which is another competitive reward from the Redrix era. Remember, everyone, once they got Redrix, they stopped going. So this was another reward, the rocket launcher. And Bungie changed the element. I used to have a different flavor, and they changed it in our inventories.
Oh my God.
The thing is, I don't even feel like I have that many shiny objects. Anytime somebody wants to flex on me, I go hit up clan chat, I ask the senpais to show up, and they roll up with the last wish emblems and stuff like that. That I think is the biggest shiny object in the game.
Yeah. Okay.
The last wish emblem is definitely such a flex. I mean, only 2 teams getting that in the world. One of those people now being banned means only 11 people in the world have this.
Okay, that's fair. You're part of tier 1. There's people like Snurv, Vendetta. Like you're okay. That's true. The last wish emblem is probably one of the absolute most coveted.
If I had that emblem, I would never take it off.
Which I don't think any of them do. Maybe I can get in touch with one of them and really talk about that experience. Thank you, man. Based on what Cami recommended, I headed into the second year of Destiny's content with the release of Forsaken, often considered Bungie's best and biggest expansion ever, one that saved the franchise during its lowest state and paved the way for brand new incentives. One of those came with the game's 4th raid experience, The Last Wish. Players who could beat it in the first 24 hours would earn the new Wish Ascended emblem. From September 14th, 2018 at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time until 1 p.m. the next day, September 15th, unfolded the craziest 24 hours Destiny's community had ever seen. Out of 130,000 people who attempted that day one raid, only 2 teams managed to complete it within the 24-hour challenge. A third team missed the mark by literally 2 minutes, something Dado and his team has had to remember for years now as the 2402. I will say that the Final Shape's Salvation Edge raid has since set a new record for day one raiding. Only 1 team beat that on the first day, but since the achievable emblem now extends to 48-hour completions, over 3,000 people acquired it, meaning the Last Wish emblem remains the rarest there is by far in regards to day one raiding, which is...
Technically, though, there was only 1 team that beat it in 24 hours during Salvation's Edge contest. So that kind of gives it more 24-hour rarity. I understand that the emblem is representative of 48 hours. I almost wish there was maybe a different emblem, like 2 emblems if you beat it. That would have been kind of interesting, but let's see what he has to say.
I was lucky enough to interview one of the 11 people on Earth who have that emblem to hear their story firsthand. Vendetta.
Yes, hello.
Thank you for joining. I appreciate you taking the time, coming around to talk about this incredible emblem that, quite frankly, never stopped hearing about.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
With Last Wish, you know, one can only assume that you had to be pretty darn good at the game already, and you probably had to be quite serious about going for, you know, a day one challenge at the time. It's not like anyone just hopped in with any gear they wanted without any people that they talked to in advance. So I'm really curious, like, when did you start taking the day one aspect of raiding seriously?
So I got lucky, right? There were Halo people that were playing this game, Gigs and Game Sager, that I already knew through Halo. So because of that, they knew who I was from Halo.
And they were good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of had people who could take it as seriously.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's 2018, Last Wish is coming out, and you decide, like, I'm going to take this seriously.
Oh, yeah. We were already on the same page because me, Gigs, Game Sager, that's the core 3 who are going to, like, do world first race. We would always just pick up good players that we think, you know, can compete or, like, that want to go for first. So we've just been running that same core for a while. And Last Wish being the first one with a physical prize, we obviously really wanted that. So we grinded like 12 hours a day leveling for that.
Okay, so with Last Wish, you know, new expansion, everyone's got a power grind, and then you've got the raid, and you've got your core 3. 10 days out, do you know the other 3 at that point?
Okay, so the team building, that usually happens months in advance. Well, okay, maybe not months, but like Destiny 2 did not launch in the greatest state. Usually we try and get like a full tier 1 squad, but Destiny 2 was not very good at launch, and a lot of people stopped playing the game. So for Eater of Worlds and Spire of Stars, we did not have a full tier 1 squad, but everyone was super excited for the major expansion because like that one always has a lot of hype around it because Taken King was the best of D1. So we had that same expectation for Last Wish, and we also knew it was like Bungie's Hail Mary to save Destiny 2 because the game was not good. So a lot of people were excited for that, so we had people lined up already.
Yeah, like what kind of practice? Other raids, or like how do you practice for a raid?
That's just it. You kind of can't unless you want to go like outside and do like puzzle solving or something like that in other games.
So is it just like trying to figure out DPS strats in the current meta?
Pretty much, yeah. Like you just want to be really familiar with the game, like what weapons are good, what weapons are bad.
I spent about 23 hours in that Last Wish raid. Made it to Riven, wasn't able to successfully clear it, and I can tell you right now, it's both a gauntlet of a puzzle, but then the exhaustion sets in, especially because the vault encounter was so difficult to solve that you start working against time and you're very, very exhausted. You're like mentally exhausted. You're getting very grumpy with your team. You're, you know, irritable, right? And you're trying to handle such a difficult challenge. We almost beat it. We weren't able to get past Riven, but we almost did beat it. We got to damage a few times, but eventually we just had to give up. We were like 23 hours in. We're like, there's no way we're going to figure this out in less than an hour and do Queen's Walk afterwards. So we had to give up, but that was a crazy challenge.
What kind of loadouts are your team bringing? What kind of subclasses are you running?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's mostly just that, and then it's figuring out the leveling because back then that actually mattered. Now it kind of doesn't because of a contest mode.
Which is nice because that kind of opens the door for, you know, anyone of any skill to at least give it a shot, but it's still the highest skilled people who are going to be kind of near the top. So that's cool. Okay, so you kind of mentioned like this was the first time there was a earnable item, like that day one emblem, which is what you're referring to. You had kind of been into day one raids prior to, obviously. obviously you mentioned that, but the emblem, like, it sounds like it's safe to say that that added a massive layer of like, whoa, let's get this. Let's try and be the first team to win, obviously, but also earn this 24-hour time limit achievable item.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, once we knew that a world first already happened, which was Redeem, I mean, it was like 18 hours into the raid race, and we knew there were only 6 hours left. So we're like, there's a very good chance that no one else is going to get this emblem. Turns out that was correct. It was just us. Like, we were the only other team once we ended up getting our clear. I think it was like 21 hours. It was rough.
You're right. At that point, you kind of know, like, if the absolute pinnacle team that got first place took 18 hours, odds are like no one else or very few are going to finish it within the next 6.
Exactly.
Which is an interesting thing for them. Like, obviously, I would still wear the emblem because it's such a flex, still extremely rare. But it also sucks because it's a reminder that they were second place. They weren't first place on that one. A little bit, I suppose. I don't know. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Definitely, they were that close, sort of. I mean, obviously, it was hours later, but this was really a test of people's endurance and willingness to battle into the late hours of the evening, gaming, trying to beat this damn raid.
And we already knew that, like, Slayer's team, the legend himself, their squad, fell apart at Vault. We knew Gathalion, whose team was the top contender at the time as well. They also stopped at Vault. So good teams were dropping out, and we were like, it's now or never, right? Like, if we want an extremely rare thing, this is it.
So, okay, do you have like meal prep? Like, how on earth, the 24-hour challenge like this, you know, you got like energy drinks, fast food, meal prep on the ready, or like, what, you know what I mean? What, can you just, what's that like?
No raid race had ever exceeded, I want to say, like 7 or 8 hours at that point. So we were not prepared at all in that regard. I usually don't get any sleep because I'm super anxious before a day one. I had 3 hours of sleep going into the start of last week. And then I was up until reset watching Dado because their squad was very, very close to getting the emblem as well. They ended up finishing 2 minutes late, as I'm sure you and a lot of people know.
Well aware.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so how does it feel knowing that you are one of extremely few people on the entire planet that actually have this emblem? Like, you know, I assume everyone that has it never takes it off. And I'm just really curious. Like, that is one of the most unique things out there.
I mean, it feels very prestigious for sure. It's a nice reminder that I was at my peak back then, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I still do very well in raid races now, but back then it was just a different feeling entirely, right? Because there wasn't like a big hardcore scene. Not too many people took this game that seriously. It's a very small group compared to what it is now. Now the hardcore Destiny player base is huge in comparison, at least.
Okay, so what's your opinion on just like earnable cosmetics? So in this case, an emblem, but it could even be like shaders, ornaments, like, you know, where they're specifically only earnable. You can't buy them. You know, you can't just put in the time. It's like this one was time gated. So I don't know. Just curious what your whole opinion on that method of motivation is.
So that is one of my biggest gripes with Destiny right now, is there isn't enough motivation in game for players to want to challenge themselves. Like, I think even just doing like a solo GM, there should be an emblem for it. This game, it's so easy to incentivize players to do things with cosmetics, and it's also not taking away anything, like any actual tangible, like let's just say a god roll rocket launcher that's 3 times better than anything else you could acquire. If you just give us cosmetics, I feel like the play time increases.
Right.
You just incentivize these like hardcore challenges, like even just solo flawlessing a raid. An emblem for that would be sick.
It's true, and you're right. There is very little downside in the sense of, like, we are not going to gatekeep a god roll. We are simply going to reward people who want to try something, and it won't put anyone else at a disadvantage if they don't have it.
And it lets hardcore players that challenge themselves, you know, to feel some sort of prestige about what they've done, as opposed to, you know, referring someone to a third-party website to be like, hey, look, I've done this challenge. Like, you would just have an emblem that shows that, or like a shader, or, you know, an armor ornament, something. Even for day one emblems, I feel like you should be able to...
To be fair, though, I think that Bungie would say that this type of thing wouldn't move the needle significantly because the amount of players that are so hardcore that they are going to solo flawless a raid is so small that, you know, to make an entire emblem for just a handful of people wouldn't really move the needle as much, right? Or to solo a GM, right? Like, obviously, we do see a good amount of people soloing GMs for content purposes, or just say they did it on, you know, raid report, GM report, whatever it is, right? But overall, like, the majority of people out there aren't going to care that much. They're not going to do that. And there are some people who get upset about cosmetics being locked behind challenges that are too difficult. I really think that most of them need to just get over it, that adding a cosmetic to a tough challenge is a cool thing, and I personally don't mind it at all. There's so many cosmetics in the game already, thousands and thousands of cosmetics. You not being able to get absolutely all of them because you can't do something like that is, it seems a bit silly, a bit trivial, but we'll see what Bungie does in the future. I doubt they'll do this just because, like I said, it doesn't move the needle, but people would also be upset. Who knows if they would ever implement something like that.
Show your placement on it, right?
Oh, that would be so cool. Because you're right. Some people can solo a dungeon or solo flawless a dungeon, but it's like, well, hey, look at my emblem. I did it in this amount of minutes. That'd be pretty neat. And then that would almost also instantly give you kind of the like, whoa, this person that I just LFG'd with is really good.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with the placement that you got on it and the minutes that on it is that there are cheaters using, infinite power cheats flying across the map. It's definitely going to skew that system and make it really problematic for the ranking and stuff. But I don't know. I just think that would probably diminish the quality of that reward to some degree.
Yeah. Well, hey, Vendetta, thank you so much for taking the time, man. This was awesome. Just even hearing what it's like being a day one raid racer and like all the prep time that goes into it and everything. So yeah, thanks again, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
The Year of Forsaken also brought a one-off event called Revelry in Season 6. It was live for 3 weeks in the spring of 2019, and they dressed up the tower for it only to have it never return in following years. The main thing you grinded for in the event were some special armor sets called Inaugural Revelry. The catch, however, was that grinding out the vendors and completing their bounties had a tiny chance of dropping a glow for those items. If you were lucky enough to get a drop, there were two kinds, antlers and wings. They also changed color to match your subclass too, just like Solstice armor does now. Unlike Solstice, however, is that this glowing armor didn't get an updated version allowing you to make them ornaments. What that means is that it cannot be transmogged today, and the original armor set can't be pulled from collections.
Interesting.
In doing some of my research, I'd learned that there was a glitch back in the day making them still glow as long as someone still had it in their inventory or character. This would mean hanging on to the deprecated armor for over 5 years though, and after what felt like forever.
There's someone out there that's hanging on to this crap at this point, right? Someone has that busted Legend of Acrius sitting in their inventory for this long. Someone's holding on to this.
Searching for someone, I finally found one person who had them named Jesper. They seemed to recall the same thing, but unfortunately when we tried to get new footage, it turns out Bungie has patched the items, meaning it's truly only a thing of the past that lasted only 3 weeks with no plans of returning. Now, during my search for those Revelry items and speaking to people about it, it occurred to me that we've had a lot of cosmetics come from custom engrams during those types of events. Back then, pretty much every season brought some form of unique engram, right? So that got me thinking, does anyone out there still have some of those on their account?
Yeah.
Because by now, we're pretty uniform, so it'd have to be either inactive accounts out there or someone intentionally hanging on to them. I also didn't know if maybe they would have just been wiped out or converted to modern day versions. In particular, the cosmetic engrams. Would those now just be your basic Eververse engrams that we've had for the last 3 years? Well, what I ended up finding absolutely floored me. And not only did one account out there hold on to almost all of them, but they're actually someone who is considered to be one of the best players in the world, and they go by ATP, all the players. I finally get into a call with you. You are the man with all of these different engrams. I didn't even know this was a thing or that you could even keep it. When did you start collecting these engrams?
So I actually started collecting these in Season 2, which would have been back in December 2017, just over 6 years.
Holy cow, that's early. Like, how come? I'm just really curious. Did you know, there's probably gonna be a day where these things are deprecated or gone or removed, or what was the motivating factor there?
It's interesting because back in Destiny 1, I would collect special orders in my Postmaster. And in D2, when they had those engrams, I noticed from Season 1 to Season 2, there was a different engram. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And so I decided to save that Season 2 engram to see if there would be a new one in Season 3. And there was. And that kind of just led into a cycle where I was like, I want to see how many of these I can get.
Holy cow. Just even seeing your post box right now, it's like...
Yeah. It goes off the screen.
I have OCD almost in keeping things clean. I almost purge my items. This is a whole other level to a point where I respect it. How do you even handle your inventory management? For example,
this is too far. His entire inventory management system is way different than mine and everyone else's. He's holding on to some of the craziest relics and gems from the past.
Rooms are full. I can't handle it. I need to clear my inventory like ASAP. So what are some of the pain
He's got a blue engram in there.
points managing something like this?
Well, my postmaster is always in shambles because of this. So on my Titan, which I'm on right now, I have 1 engram slot. If this gets filled with an exotic or a prime, everything else that I get goes to my postmaster, and my postmasters are just always full.
Oh my god, I'm dying. This is amazing.
To answer that question, you don't handle it. You just kind of let my postmaster get overflown. I feel bad for the
This is a fate worse than death for me and my OCD. This is not. I just looking at this pains me. The fact that he has to play Destiny like this in perpetuity is tough.
Postmaster, because they have to do a lot of stuff for me.
This stuff in your postmaster right now, like you've got 60 items in here. So this stuff just gets burned. Like you don't ever go and just clear these out. You just let them get burned as new items enter, right? In order to keep what's most important, which is in the inventory within the character.
Yeah. Like if I see an Eververse engram like this, I'll actually go and claim this. But for the most part, everything on my hunter here is going to get tossed out eventually because I'm never going to go and clean it.
Do you know if these things still contain the correct stuff from the season that they came from?
So during last year's Game to Give, I actually opened 1 engram as a charity incentive, and it gave me, it was a engram from season 8, Season of the Undying, and it gave me a sunset piece of gear.
Really?
It gave me a sunset hunter cloak. So they do give you the correct gear. Yeah.
I have a pretty analytical.
The Bungie devs, you know, who have to go through all the difficulty of like sunsetting and making sure that old things don't break the game, watching ATP's account shaking their fist. This guy single-handedly is making it so difficult for us.
Mind, and for whatever reason, I'm immediately starting to think like, how many engrams are there out there? Or I guess, do you know if you're missing some?
I know I'm missing 4.
Oh, really?
I'm missing season 1, the very first engram. I'm missing the first Dawning engram, because those ones you actually had to pay for, and I didn't want to pay money for an engram. I'm actually missing the season 2 engram that I originally saved, because I accidentally opened it a few years ago. And then I'm also missing a Crimson Days engram.
Dang.
Would you mind just walking?
I like how he knows exactly which 4 engrams he's missing. He knows the entirety of the engram collection. He has all of them except for 4. Like, this is the level of dedication that we all need to respect in Destiny 2. Like, you think you're hardcore in Destiny 2. Are you ATP's engram collection hardcore?
Through and looking at what these are? Like,
yeah, so this first one is prototype engram. So this is from season 3, which is Warmind. So that's May 2018. And you can actually inspect it. And the UI has changed so much since then that it goes off the screen. But yeah, it still shows featured contents from Warmind, Sunset Gear.
Holy cow.
Steadfast engram, so this is from Forsaken, so season 4.
You can inspect it? That's
Notorious
so cool.
engram, this is Season of the Drifter, which I believe was season 6.
The UI is busted too.
Eververse engram, this is the current one. But I kept it because I was like, I don't know if there's going to be a new one. And I like the fact that it's kind of shelved behind some of these other ones, which is why I keep this one here. Mnemonic engram, this is from Arrivals, so season 11. Umbral engram, this one is from Season of the Seraph. Whenever they got rid of them is when I chose to keep this one. Nostalgic engram, this one is from season 8, so Season of the Undying. And then I've actually got a Defiant engram from season 21 or season 20. I can't remember which one it was. I actually don't know how I got this in here, because normally these engrams automatically decrypt, but I somehow got one in here. Eerie engram from Festival of the Lost, and then this one is just an exotic that I happen to have.
I kind of want to inspect on your other characters if you don't mind.
I was gonna say I can swap to my other 2 characters. I think my Warlock.
Oh, he does not mind. This man has been waiting for this moment. He does not mind. He has been wanting someone to interview him. For years, he's been collecting this.
As the best looking engrams. So this first one on my Warlock is the Jubilant engram. So this is from the Revelry, which was a seasonal event that they don't do anymore. This one I think is really cool because this one has a knockout system. So if you acquired gear from this, you could not get it again until you've obtained everything.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So best of year 1 engram. This is from Season of Opulence. So that's season 7. Fond Memory memories. This one, it's either Season of the Worthy or Season of the Dawn. So it's either Season 9 or Season 10. I can't remember which one. And then Luminous is the other one. This is also either Season 9 or Season 10. And then I've got another Mnemonic and another Umbral on this character.
You know, it's kind of neat that like each season they decided to make them look slightly different. And on one hand, you'd think like, why not just streamline things? But on the other hand, by virtue of doing that, they kind of just naturally cause this unique, rare situation where people can have different engrams or like remember specific engrams that got them gear that they loved. And yeah, I don't know. That's kind of cool.
That black
so
armor.
100 Solstice engram from the first Solstice event. And this one actually also has a knockout system. Ephemeral, this is from Festival of the Lost. So events used to have specific engrams associated to them, which they stopped. But I guess they kind of brought it back this year with the Eerie engram. This is an exotic engram from Spire of Stars, the raid lair.
I had no idea this was even a thing. Oh my god.
Listed as 1600. You inspect it, it shows 1800 gear. And if I actually hover over it on dim, it's power level 380.
Oh my god. What do you think it would drop at?
That's a good question. My guess is 1600.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a dawning engram. So if I open this engram, I am guaranteed this chest piece.
What do you think of that system, like compared to, you know, past versus present kind of thing?
I think the knockout system is so much better. I see no reason for them not to bring it back.
Yes, thank you. Knockout system, please, Bungie.
Etched engram, this is from Black Armory. So that's season 5. Umbral, Iron engram, and then these are just standard exotics.
ATP, do you think you are the only person on the planet who has this?
You know,
yes, he is the only yes, I'm speaking for him now. He is the only person insane enough to go through this hell and constantly have his postmaster full. There's no way anyone else would suffer like this. This is just an ATP thing.
That's an interesting question because I've had people tell me that they've also saved engrams, but they never can prove it to me. I think I'm the only person.
Yeah, I was gonna say, normally like people are proud to share these types of things, you know, so like it should be easy to provide a screenshot.
I think the big thing that deters people from doing this or from doing it was the fact that you really restrict yourself on how many engram slots you have.
This might be an odd question, but do you know what drives you? Like, what's so enjoyable about doing that? Because I find it fascinating.
I think it's just kind of cool to look back at what we used to have or what we had. And
all right, you take a picture then. All right, you frame it, you hang it up on the wall. Okay, you make it your screensaver then. Okay, ATP, this is too far.
It's
I'm joking.
Just a nostalgic factor, really. Like looking at this engram and thinking back to the first solstice that we ever had. I think it's just kind of cool.
I guess it also kind of brings back memories of like who you were playing with at the time, things that you achieved and did back then. Yeah, that's a good point. Is there anything else on your account that you feel is you know, uniquely rare that maybe not many people in the world have, or anything that you're just super proud of earning or being in ownership of?
Because I think that I have something that a lot of people probably don't have.
Color me intrigued.
Okay, so Titan's Postmaster, this right here, Strange Parcel.
A strange parcel. This parcel doesn't say who it's from, but the postmaster says a sweeper bot dropped it off for you.
You got this for completing the Red War campaign on your first character.
Are you me? And you have it?
Never opened it. I don't even know what it contains. I'm sure someone online knows what's in it. I have no idea what's in it. I've also got these two. So this first one, you remember the laser tag week, Curse of Osiris? This is the emblem associated with it. And this is
Okay. ATP is the equivalent of a Destiny 2 hoarder, all right? You ever watch the TV show where that lady collects like 400 lampshades and her entire living room is just lamps everywhere? She walks in the front door stepping on top of lamps and whatever, and there's like, you know, rat feces everywhere, stuff like that. This is ATP's postmaster. This is ATP's account. He is a hoarder. He has a problem, right? He has a serious problem. This is insane, the fact that he's keeping all of this. It's impressive, but I'm also just like perplexed that he can continue to play the game like this and will play the game like this forever.
The Wolves Unleashed, the Lord of Wolves Iron Banner emblem. And then this is the contest mode Vow of the Disciple emblem. Just in my postmaster, waiting to be claimed.
And there's the blue engram.
Got a blue one here as well. Yeah.
Oh, blue.
And this does go to your engram list, but I figured I'll keep it in the postmaster. That way I have one extra slot.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, something else you might actually find interesting is if I go to my vault, I have Trials of the Nine tokens. Emperor Cow's tokens, and I also have Gift of Eververse shaders because I actually had 11 and I wanted the number to be 10. It gives you nothing.
What is that from?
It just disappears.
This has been wonderful. ATP, I just got to say a huge thanks. This was so cool getting to see this stuff. Thanks for sharing your screen and running through all of that. Like, this was unbelievable.
Not a problem.
Now, while I was walking through all those season engrams with ATP, I realized it's time to talk about the infamous sunsetting and Destiny content vault that came with Beyond Light's launch in late 2020. Starting off with sunsetting, a director's cut was written to the community explaining the weapons problem in Destiny. People had been amassing weapons for 3 years, covering pretty well everything we needed for all activities, so to keep us desiring new weapons, Bungie would have to make them outright better, which was introducing an infinite path of power creep. Their solution to this was to cap weapons, meaning as Guardians went from power level 1060 up to 1260, older weapons would be stuck at 1060, effectively sunsetting them into being obsolete. You could hang on to them, but you'd be at a major disadvantage, and with vault space coming at a premium, people were forced to decide if they delete their favorite weapons from the past or make room for new ones, which there weren't many of to start. The collections tab also doesn't allow you to pull weapons that were random rolls, so people were fairly distraught.
This is where I kept one of my rarest snipers, my Eye of Soul snapshot opening shot.
Second half to all of this was that content vault that I mentioned. Bungie had also announced that Destiny was becoming too large to update and maintain. Their solution was removing old content from the game. Campaign missions, strikes, maps, entire planets, you name it. All of which would be stored away in an archive that we couldn't have access to unless Bungie decided to someday bring it back. This meant that triumphs or certain collections were in danger of becoming impossible to complete. If the content required to achieve a triumph was going to be removed forever, then you could never obtain that score for it. That's when I started to think about how I'd found all these singular rare items, but an account's triumph score and collections count are technically the amalgamation of thousands of items, and with the pressure that came from sunsetting in the content vault, I wanted to find someone at the top of the world in this regard. This is where we meet Snurv. By a few different metrics, they've become one of, if not the premier completionist for Destiny 2. From the launch of D2, completing achievements in the game gives you triumph points. When sunsetting and the DCV hit in November of 2020 with Beyond Light, Bungie decided to lock in a legacy score covering 2017 up to that point. Because they knew many of those past achievements would no longer be accessible, it's sort of like a frozen snapshot in time to represent that era, and it just so happens that 128 people in the world were tied for first at the top. From that point on, each expansion has accumulated new triumph scores that lock into place as their respective activities get removed with each new release. You can think of this as like an in-between score, I suppose, that also represents some of our past, and then the release of Final Shape, for example, brought a whole new set of triumphs for you to chase. Now, it's quite difficult to keep up with obtaining every single item and achievement in the game, so although there were 128 people back then tied for first, there's now only 24 who have been able to keep it going, and Snurv is one of them.
Yes.
Snurv, I have finally found you with one of the highest scores on the planet, and I'm actually really curious to first ask you, when did you even start playing this whole franchise, Destiny?
I started playing Destiny from the Destiny 1 beta. Haven't stopped playing since.
What inspired you to start becoming so focused on like collection score? And was it early on, or was there like a point in time where you remember like, I decided I'm gonna start to, try and max out all of these things?
I'd say ever since Super Mario 64, like collecting all the stars and going into Pokemon, like completing the Pokedex, getting all the Pokemon.
Yeah, jumping through the paintings.
Pretty much like my entire life, I just like completing things.
I knew you had this max score in D2 and that you were known as one of the larger collectors within D2. I didn't recognize that this goes back even in D1. Like I knew you played it maybe, but...
Oh yeah, same thing with Destiny 1.
Okay, so Snurv, if you don't mind bringing us to your triumphs page, I kind of want to see this number. Can you just walk me through this page? Because what I'm looking at is vastly different from what I'm used to seeing on my account. 167,745. I noticed, you know, it says active triumph score.
Yep.
That looks like a bug of some kind. Is that just very recent, or what's the deal with that?
It's kind of been like this for several seasons now, I'd say, where like it's not accurate. I don't know why Bungie can't get that right.
Math is hard. One Bungie dev out there that can't calculate the difference between 20 numbers there.
They just track all their triumphs. Like I have more than what they think they should have, or like the max they think I should have.
This legacy triumphs at the bottom, I can see totals, you know, for the respective segments, but can you just scroll to the right? The total legacy triumph. So 129,735. Oh yeah. 2017 to 2020. The moment sunsetting came into play. And then since then, it's been 25,532. Wow. This is cool. Would you mind just running through, like I'm just looking at your screen right now, 1,094 out of 1,094. Armor, wow. 3,144 out of...
This guy is king completionist here. Holy.
3,144. Equipment, like almost every single one of these is absolutely...
No, equipment, he's missing 9. Oh my god. Delete the account. Delete the account. Unbelievable. This filthy casual. Look at that flare. He's missing 11 pieces of cosmetics. Literally casual, too casual.
Maxed out, and it would be embarrassing if I showed you what my screen looks like. So to me, this is really special to even witness. So what are some of the things that are missing? Flare, for example, I can see, you know, 1460 out of 1471. Are there things that you're like, yeah, I never got it, and this is the reason?
Oh yeah. So this, it says 86 out of 87 here, and this was an emblem that just was bugged and never released for anyone. So that's why it's grayed out.
Do you remember the story behind that? What was it supposed to come from?
I think it was like a season of the Risen. It was supposed to be either from like a triumph or like a vendor reset. Wow. No one ever got this.
On the topic of emblems, before we move on, what about day one raids? Because for me, there's like people who really like to collect things. There's people who are unbelievably talented at this game. And then there's, you know, unicorns who kind of need to be both if you really want to have max score. So like, what kind of stress or pressure does that put on you for some of those day one raid triumphs?
You definitely have to assemble a team like multiple months beforehand. And yeah, you just have to scheduling, planning.
So you don't have the last wish emblem. Are there any other day one raids that you were unable to acquire it?
I am missing Garden.
Okay. Was there a story?
Garden was tough. Garden was the second toughest one to get beyond last wish. I obviously didn't get last wish. Only 2 teams did, but I did get Garden, and it's less than 100 teams actually successfully cleared Black Garden. So that's why you always will see me in Destiny 2 with my green emblem on my day one Garden emblem. Took us like 18, 19 hours to clear that thing. Yeah, that was so difficult.
On that, or is it just super hard raid? You know, you're human, people are human.
I probably could have gotten Garden, but I don't know, the team kind of fell apart. Fatigue hidden.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
If it's cool with you, let's keep going through. Like, there's a few other things. Is there anything you kind of think back on, like, oh, I wish I could have got that? Or
so this item here was supposed to drop for season 20, but it never came out. I think this was supposed to be rewarded from like when you reset your rank for the vendor, but it just never dropped. This has also been bugged since the release of Forsaken. You cannot get this mod. It's just grayed out forever.
Wow. And it's not something that like people did discover but no longer can. It's like, nope, just never worked.
It just never worked, no.
So obviously becoming rank 1, unbelievable achievement. I'm curious, along the way, were there certain items or achievements or things that you did that are like really special, or that you really remember as like, wow, I finally got it?
So every time I get a Trials cosmetic, it just feels really nice because they're extremely rare for them to drop.
Really? Like just the drop rates are that low, hey?
Yeah, I mean, you have to go to the lighthouse and then pray a Trials cosmetic drops, and every time you get one, it just feels nice. This is only available for 3 weeks out of the entire year, this emblem right here.
And how could you acquire that emblem?
You have to be featured on social media or the TWAB or TWID now.
So there is a 3-week window if an official Bungie account were to retweet or quote tweet your...
Or share it, yeah.
Wow, do you remember what your submission was? Like, did you have to submit multiple because you kept trying, or did you have one special submission and you happened to get it? And what platform?
Yeah, it was actually a retweet on Twitter, and I feel like we just got extremely lucky.
What did you post that was special?
Oh, it was just like a funny video me and my friends made, just like a random dance video.
The sheer luck to post that as a completionist in particular as well. Yeah, that's so cool, man. Any other difficult things come to mind?
So the moment Bungie released the second set of contest emblems, like Movie of the Week and like Bungie Bounty,
right?
That's when I like really started focus on getting them, because I wasn't expecting.
Jeez, this man literally has to get Movie of the Week to continue his completionist, and on top of that, he has to get that Bungie Bounty. Oh man.
Expecting like a new version of them to come out. I missed out on the first Bungie Bounty emblem.
Holy, that is such a good point. I didn't even think of that. Even Movie of the Week, you can make a tremendous, wholesome video and like it might not win. Or the Bungie Bounty, you might just never actually get to match against whoever's in the Bungie Bounty.
Yeah, back in Destiny 1, there was just one version of them. So when Destiny 2 launched, I was just expecting just one version of them.
Now you've got me really wondering, like, how many Bungie Bounties have you had to acquire?
Okay, so I have all of the Movie of the Weeks in Destiny 2 besides the new one currently. And I'm missing the first Bungie Bounty emblem.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a grind for sure.
This man's dedication for completionism is incredible, but also kind of just crazy. The fact that he has to get Movie of the Week multiple times just to continue to get these emblems.
You just have to get lucky and hope you win.
Snurf, thanks again for showing me all this stuff and even just letting me showcase, you know, what one of the #1 players in the world can have.
Anytime.
After that last interview, I realized that moving forward in the game's timeline can make things harder to find because there's simply less time for something to be held onto, whether it's out of nostalgia or not. But a common theme I'd noticed in every discussion was how rare something is when it wasn't intended, like how ATP still doesn't understand how he got that Defiant engram. I started researching for bugs or anomalies in the game in hopes to find something tangible, something I can see in-game that's somewhat inexplicable, like that Defiant engram, but truly not intended to even exist. This is where the power in word of mouth never ceases to amaze me, because I asked my Discord community about it, then they asked all of their buddies about it who asked even more, and it's incredible what can come from that. Out of hundreds of messages and posts from people asking if what they had was rare, I found one particular gem that blew my mind. During a 3-week window of time in Season of the Splicer, there was a bug in the game dropping armor that defies the game's stat restrictions. I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment, but an example that people are often aware of are the famous blue War Mantis gauntlets for Hunter. This was a broken set of gauntlets that became very popular because, well, just look at its stats. Literally all of it is weighted to the top 3 with nothing in the bottom 3. Hunters loved this for Crucible because they could go all in on recovery and mobility. The downside, however, was the fact that it was blue gear. You only get one stat mod and one regular mod without the ability to infuse it. The reason it caught fire in the community is because it breaks the game restrictions on how armor is supposed to drop. When something hits your account, the top 3 stats are grouped into something called a plug. No matter what, the total of those 3 stats must be between 22 and 34 at base. The bottom 3 are also grouped following those same restrictions. For example, something you could easily see would be like a 31 and 32 to give you a normal 63 total. But if you were to get lucky and hit the maximum on both sides, you'll have a legendary piece of gear drop 68 base stat total. Add a stat mod, artifice, masterwork it, and suddenly it's 93 total stat. But the point is that the highest you can get on a legendary is 68, and that you cannot get, say, like 40 total in the top with 28 in the bottom. The game will not allow it. It's 34 max base on both sides. Now, for those of you thinking about exotics that have like 71 total, well, yes, those follow the same restrictions, but there are some out there that get a bonus stat added, and it isn't really relevant to this. I just thought I would mention it. Back to the item that blew me away, however, is that in the first 3 weeks of that Splicer season in 2021, a bug crept into the game where, using a very specific method of focusing armor, the game would drop it with 0 restriction on those stat limits. The totals were still limited to 68, but it was like a War Mantis 2.0 that was legendary this time.
I don't remember this. This is interesting.
And one gentleman out there happened to catch that word of mouth and show me. A helmet with top 3 stats showing a base total of 45, well above the allowable 34 limit, and a stat of 1 strength, which I had never seen before and turns out is also impossible. Please welcome Mr. Rafe Belmont. Thank you again for taking the time to kind of hop in here and show me what you got. I'm going to inspect your character.
So the thing about this armor is that the plugs are incorrect. For instance, if you look at the top parts, so mobility, resilience, and recovery.
Yeah, this breaks the game.
Yeah, so this armor has way more recovery and resilience and mobility than it's possible. And
I mean, it's epic that it breaks it. I mean, 10 mobility on the Titan helmet, not so epic, but if it was like no mobility and had like 20 plus recovery and resilience, that would be just absurd.
I think, for instance, if you look at the strength value, it's +1.
Oh, you're right.
But I think it's impossible right now.
This has what? 28 and 10, that's 38, and 7 is 45. You have 45 stats in the top half here when the game's literal rule on dropping armor is 34.
Yeah, 45, yeah.
Not only that, the strength has +1, like you said. Like, that's not allowed to happen. I have never, in the history of playing this game, seen a legendary piece of armor drop with just 1 stat, ever.
So legendary armor, you don't have that yet.
How did you, do you remember getting this to drop? Like, how did you get this helmet?
I actually remember this one because I think the drops in the first week of season 14 were glitched. But I think most people just deleted those rows because most of them suck, right? So this one is not a good row because it's 58. So a lot of those rows were deleted. But I think some people probably get some of those rows.
This is cool. So when it dropped, were you a really active player? Did you know right away that, like, whoa, this breaks the rules of how gear works in Destiny, this is a glitch? Or did you learn that afterwards?
Basically, we knew how it worked in D2 with the plugs and everything, the 68 maximum. So we were looking all the time at armor pieces. And of course, all the glitchy ones were interesting for us.
I assume you never masterworked it because that would get rid of that +1.
Yeah.
This is really cool to actually see it in-game equipped on a character. It's not like they went and took it out of people's inventories or corrected it. Like, they're just out in the wild. That's special.
I'm happy to help.
Cool.
While going through the game's timeline after my chat with Rafe, I came to the conclusion that all my findings seemed to fall into 2 categories: intended and unintended. Bungie didn't intend for that bugged Lightkin armor to drop. They didn't intend on Stardust to keep that Acrius quest so long that it couldn't be completed. They did intend for the Last Wish emblem to be incredibly hard to get. They do intend on having people like Snurv out there to grind out the max triumph score. So that got me thinking about rare items driven directly by Bungie, like Movie of the Week, some emblems for forum moderators, fashion contests, third-party developers, and then it hit me like a truck: the Bungie Foundation. I had personally raised money through that avenue in the past, and they offer rare in-game incentives for both people who donate and those running a community event towards the collective fundraiser. In June of 2023, during the Season of the Deep, they set some incredible milestones at $25,000, $50,000, and $100,000 raised, a unique emblem and shader for each milestone. Content creators across the world and the remarkable communities around them do great things with this, and that's when I realized that behind the scenes is a website called Destiny Trials Report. A resource for a popular game mode has quietly raised unbelievable amounts of money for good causes, so I reached out to them and was lucky enough to get an interview. Merrick, I'm glad to have finally found you and been able to hop on this call with you, and I would love for you to just give an introduction on who you are and what you do.
I'm Merrick. Hello. I'm one of the 2 devs of Trials Report, I guess for about 9 years now, or 8, something like that, a very long time. I joined 2 guys, Vlad and Stefan, who made it maybe 2015, I guess, when Trials came out.
That's cool. So how did you first reach out to them or meet them? Like you said you had used the site, just one day thought, hey, I think I could help out with this, or how exactly did that happen?
Yeah, so I use it myself. I was playing Trials myself, and then I thought, why not just make it pretty? And then I just sent an email saying, hey, this is how Trials Report could look. And then they liked it. We've been, now only Vlad and me are left because it's been 9 years, but now we've been building Trials Report ever since. So we rebuilt it a couple of times for Trials of the Nine and then for Trials of Osiris. Yeah, still a fun hobby project that got a bit out of hand.
Right. I mean, and then the rest is history, hey?
Yeah.
Okay, so Merrick, I'm kind of curious, like, do you know how many people have used the website since its inception, or like how many people use it now or ever?
Not really. One of the things that we really didn't professionalize or whatever is analytics or this kind of stuff. And it was, I don't know, refreshed or whatever in June last year. So I looked into it. Like, I can see since June last year, and then Google is saying that we have had 4 million users.
Wow.
The vibe is enough people use it for me to be interested in keeping it running and thinking it's a cool thing to have a community website that's being used a lot. but I don't really know an exact number, unfortunately.
And if I'm not mistaken, you earned a developer award, if I'm not mistaken, correct? Like it was a developer emblem for running one of the useful tools out there to the community?
I think the idea was to give something back to third-party developers. Bungie has mentor emblems and ninja emblems, I believe, for their forums. And then the idea was to do the same for third-party developers.
The fact that you run a website like this and Bungie, recognized how useful this tool is to the community and, rewarded with an emblem, like that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I think like one of the other okay, this is cool moments was, I believe a couple of years back, they added a link to their bungie.net.apps or something, because I guess for new players who don't know anything about DIM, but for those new players they have a link to all their selection of third-party tools, and we are one of those, so we are in-game, which is also pretty cool.
So I'm kind of curious, at one point this website also kind of became a channel or an avenue for fundraising. Like people could support certain causes. It became a big avenue for Game to Give, like all various sorts of fundraising. And I'm just curious if you could talk about how that came to be and anything about that.
Yeah, one of the things that we have on Trials Report is badges, and it started with donator badges, so you could donate $1 to help us cover the costs, and then you would get a donator badge. There were some content creators running charity streams by themselves, and then we would, as an extra incentive, give out badges for everyone who donated.
You'll get a little a little badge on DestinyTrialsReport.com that just says John Cena. It's a joke because John Cena supports the Make-A-Wish Foundation all the time.
But yeah, I think Dr. Lupo amongst them and Grenadier Jake, I believe, had one where you could get a badge on Trials Report after donating. And then at some point I thought we could do a fundraiser of our own, and I just thought, might as well just try and see whether people donate for St. Jude, I guess, in that case, and then give out the badge as an extra incentive. I had no idea how many people would do that or how much money we would raise, but that ended up at, I believe, $27,000, which was pretty insane. And then I think a couple of months after, Game to Give from the Bungie Foundation itself became more of an open thing. After the success of that GCX 2021 thing, we just kept joining the Game to Give and the Bungie Day Giving Festival fundraisers, and always with the badges as an extra incentive. And yeah, here we are. In total, we're at 260,000, which is an insane amount of money when you think of it.
So that's amazing. I wanted to actually ask you that. I'm just kind of inspecting your emblem right now. So, you kind of learn that there is some power here for doing a lot of good with respect to fundraising and charity, and then you give it a shot with Game to Give and the Cordula emblem for breaking $100,000. This blows my mind.
You have to raise $100,000 for charity to get this emblem. That is definitely going to be an extremely rare emblem then.
It's just amazing what can come from the community when someone creates a streamlined avenue. Can you talk about when you first broke the 100K and what that felt like, and just a little bit about that?
It's been a while, to be honest, because...
True, you were probably one of the very first, right? Or if not the first to ever break it.
Yeah, I believe we were. I think the emblems, they came a bit after, but I mean, I'm pretty sure with every milestone, so with 100K and 200K, it's just another realization how cool it is of how much money you can raise with.
Yeah.
Again, starting with a hobby website 9 years ago, which is just for fun. The website is being used by a lot of players, and also as an extension, how many people are willing to give their money to charity because they can get a graphical badge on your website and people like it, and maybe people donate more than they would have had without the badges. That's a pretty cool realization.
Yeah, that's incredible. You would have been the first to hit 100K. You would have been the first to hit 200K. I didn't know you'd broken 200K, and now you're up to $260,000, you said, over the span of its lifetime. That's $250,000 for a good cause. Like that's unbelievable.
I need to remind myself, I guess, when you say it like that, it is pretty cool.
So something you mentioned was GCX, and that's kind of been on my mind. The more I learn about, you know, rare items and rare achievements are sort of these rare accomplishments, such as the fundraising that we're talking about right now. And a lot of this kind of was spawned from GCX. You know, I'm sort of learning a lot more about how much good that's done over such a large amount of time. So that's pretty neat. Like, how did you first hear about GCX, and what are your thoughts on that as a whole? Like,
pretty sure the way I heard of it is probably the charity marathon. And yeah, I always find it really cool how much effort goes into also like the streamers, like Leopard, I know puts a lot of effort in like that 4-hour block, which is pretty cool to see. So yeah, I mean, it did all start with GCX, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good point. Merrick, is there anything else on your mind? Like, I just want to say thanks for taking the time to do this. This was really cool for me to learn like how it came to be and all that. Is there anything else that's on your mind?
No, thanks for having me. If there's anything I can help with, I'm happy to do so.
If there's one thing that's remained constant throughout Destiny's timeline, it's the power of fundraising for good causes. And it was cool to hear Merrick say that it all started with GCX. For those that don't know what that is, it stands for Gaming Community Expo, but it's had a number of different names throughout the years. Back in 2015, popular content creators King Gathalion and Professor Broman teamed up with event organizer K-Magic to plan a fan meetup in Florida, naming it DestinyCon. It saw way higher participation than expected and immediately showed reason for continuing it in 2016. That following year, they partnered up with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, who treat childhood cancers and pediatric disease, to raise funds towards their work. Lo and behold, they raised $500,000 through a week-long charity stream where 42 streamers raised awareness within their communities towards the effort. The event has continued ever since, and to date, GCX and the Destiny community has raised over $23 million for St. Jude's cause. Being marked as one of the rarest achievements in the gaming industry, I thought I would sit down with Jason, a manager of the St. Jude's charity programs, to talk it through. Hey Jason, thanks for taking the time, you know, coming on here and chatting about everything that St. Jude and Destiny, the community, and Bungie has done in the past. I just wanted to kind of open with maybe introducing yourself, you know, what you do, and jump into some questions.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jason Heitman, and thank you again, Castle, for taking the time to allow me to be a part of this. Again, I'm Jason Heitman. I'm the manager of content creator programs and initiatives at ALSAC St. Jude. So it's American, Lebanese, Syrian Associated Charities. Yes, it's a lot to say, but we're the fundraising and awareness organization for St. Jude. And, you know, I have the privilege of working with people like yourself on a regular basis, content creators that come in and want to support this beautiful mission of St. Jude, you know, on a global scale to, you know, support what we do on a pediatric life-threatening disease level and support it through the things that they care about, which in this case, like nerd culture and gaming and so on and so forth. So it's honestly, it is the utmost privilege, one, to work at St. Jude, but additionally to work in this community, especially something that, you know, we all kind of grew up in.
Gaming.
Yeah. How much it's changed lives and lifestyles over the last, I mean, just go back to like 2008. Would you think we would be sitting here having conversations like this, even within this century, if you will?
I know.
It's cool. It's awesome.
A lot of people know that St. Jude and Bungie and Destiny, you know, have some things going on, but some people have no idea how these things came to be. So I wanted to know if you could explain, you know, what the Destiny community means to St. Jude and how they came to be.
Now, granted, this isn't all just from the Destiny community, but it is largely spurred by this group that comes from all over the world. And realistically, just out of the bag, GCX in all of its previous versions, 23 million lifetime that has been raised by people just playing predominantly Destiny. I mean, there's been other things along the way. Obviously, the name change to kind of expand the process, but it is a prime example of what you can do if you galvanize a group of people to fall in love with a mission, whatever that mission may be. In this case, just so happens to be St. Jude, and to produce these magical moments. And, you know, it's just whatever it is about space magic brought us all together.
Can you just kind of explain, like, how did they connect St. Jude to this former Guardian Con, or now GCX, and with the whole marathon charity? Do you want to just kind of run through how that works or what that is?
Yeah, so we'll start with GCX for what it is now and how it came about. And I technically couldn't put that it started at an ale house, because that's literally where it started. They maxed capacity, you know, like a restaurant, like a Bennigan's or Chili's or Fridays. And that's where this all started. Like all good ideas start, like in someone's garage. That's basically what this is. So, that became the beginning of it. And then, as it grew, they needed more space. So it took its level to Tampa Fairgrounds. And then they also, other locations, the convention center and so on and so forth in Tampa. But then even then, like Kevin and Ben, Professor Broman, had this connection to our mission. A family friend, an associate, if you will. They were looking for a way to do good in the world. And we were the mission that they chose, and we will forever be grateful to them for that process. They started to put together, it was just a general fundraiser. And I believe the very first event that they did and fundraised just around $500,000. And that was just like this is still like early days of online fundraising. It was again, like $23 million to provide to the research and the treatment that goes on at that hospital. Like I'm just a proud beggar for what we do and what the future of keeping families together. That's the premise of St. Jude and the process that we have at hand, and forever grateful for that crew. That's kind of the general background in this endeavor. It all just starts from some random idea and people being like, you know what, we could do that. We could figure it out, and literally just ad hocking it along the way. So here we are.
Everything starts on a napkin and eventually grows. And this
at a restaurant, yes, yeah.
Right, yeah, at a restaurant. So another cool thing is that they run this marathon, right? Like GCX has this week-long marathon with blocks, and all of these people get to kind of work towards this common goal, which just like blows my mind how well it works and how amazing it is that everybody's into it. One thing that I find pretty cool is that, eventually Bungie kind of caught wind of this. Like it obviously grew, and if I'm not mistaken, maybe you can clarify, like there were times where Bungie decided to kind of step in and contribute, even like providing exclusive or extremely rare items for people supporting a good cause, which is just so amazing to see a company do that. So I don't know if you could touch on that at all.
I think that's the beauty of Bungie in a nutshell. Now they have their own foundation and the good work that they're doing on that end. Like, yes, to answer your question, they have provided a donation incentive, if you will, for an emblem. We all chase those in the game. We know that. We want to look cool and different, and like, where did that person get that thing? Not anything that's directly associated to us. It's just something that they feel like is the right thing to use in that moment. There's always some kind of context around it that can be harkened back to the mission of St. Jude. And it's just, you donate and you get this item, and then you get to proudly wear it. Like, this is very biased to me, but I only wear those emblems because I'm proud of them too. Like, as a donor myself, I donate so that I can get those, and I never want to take them off. And like, you get some pretty prestigious things in the game for doing stuff, but I'm just like, you know what? Like, it just means more to me. Something bigger than myself. The emblems themselves have raised over $2 million in that process.
Jeez.
And honestly, you know what? One of my favorite things to do, I'll get in a PvP match and I'll see one of those emblems and I'll go out of my way to message that person. Thank you for wearing that emblem. Thank you for supporting St. Jude. They're like, oh yeah, 100%. And a dozen of those people that I've messaged, I've become friends with, and we still play now.
It makes me think more about how, some emblems you wear to show off, look what I have, but you don't. But there's something about this emblem where you don't even wear it to show off to other people. Like, it feels good because you know how you got it, and the fact that doing that helped something, like you said, larger than yourself, which is pretty special, because a lot of things in Destiny are so that you can say, hey, look what I achieved, that maybe someone else didn't. But in this case, it's kind of the flip side. It's more like, no,
what
like
we collectively did.
Yeah, so that's cool.
I haven't met more courteous and kind and loving people, and that in itself is a stronger testament to why this all matters in the first place, even beyond the St. Jude connection, like truly making, righteous friendships and connections to people, because you never know what that person may need, and they may have needed that in that moment.
It's cool to think about how something so big came from the Destiny community. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it just continued to grow and grow. And I even remember when Dr. Lupo was getting bigger and bigger, it started to expand into like the Fortnite community and other communities. I don't know. I'm kind of proud to be a part of the Destiny community, because
you should be.
It's pretty special. The Destiny community specifically is just one of the most unique.
Is he wearing his beard?
And it's cool to be a part of.
It definitely is.
Well, hey, thanks so much, Jason, for taking the time. Really appreciate you coming on and talking about this stuff. And I guess I'll see you out there.
Yep. Thanks for letting me ramble.
Yeah, no, you're good.
I appreciate it.
I don't care what the name of this thing is. We're going to keep coming because it's awesome.
The way Jason talked about our community and how Bungie made direct interactions with the cause, it made me realize just how special it is when they do that with their players. Whether it's showing up at a conference, doing a live stream reveal, or creating custom emblems, it all comes with an elevated significance from their recognition. That's when I remembered that years ago I had heard about a special exotic that Bungie gave to one person in the world. The rarest item in the franchise's history. All the way back to November of 2014, shortly after the launch of Destiny 1, a Reddit user named BK Bunny made a post about the game's positive impact on her husband Eric. You see, Eric had a brain condition that required 7 surgeries in just 11 months leading up to the game's launch, and it massively affected his memory. At times, he didn't know who his wife was or even himself. This all changed, however, when his neurologist explained that video games were proving to be effective therapy tools in combating brain and memory damage. In the post, Bunny details how Eric fell in love with Destiny, to the point he agonized over surgery dates interfering with DLC launches rather than the actual surgeries themselves. She also explained how one obstacle he'd been facing was raiding. Communicating something like being stuck in a portal during the Vault of Glass raid was difficult, especially when members of the fire team expressed frustration. Well, the post blew up. Hundreds of people offered to take him raiding, no comms needed and going at his own pace. Just another moment of what this community's like. Not soon after, Bungie took notice of what was happening, and Deej, the community manager at the time, reached out to BK and Eric telling them to check the postmaster. To their surprise, the rarest item to occur in Destiny came to life. A truly unique exotic, unreleased to anyone else in the world, suddenly in the game on his account only. The fate of all fools. An interesting...
That's it. The exotic, the only one exists ever. Fate of all fools. Now we know it as No Time to Explain, but in Destiny 1, that's what it was. And the perk in No Time to Explain is called Fate of all fools.
Combo of using a pulse rifle's visual model, the Stranger's rifle to be exact, but then shooting as a scout rifle. It came with Zen Moment and the Fate of All Fools perk giving bonus precision damage after chaining body shots, which you may recognize in today's day and age. In fact, here's a bit of raw footage where you might also recognize the exact sound that it makes.
Nice. Very nice.
You're almost there.
You see, a full year after that interaction between Bungie and Eric, they released the weapon to the public but remodeled as Jade Rabbit, which made Eric's exotic remain a true one-of-one item, completely unique to himself and unobtainable to anyone else in the world. I reached out to them to hear their story and potentially close the book on my journey of finding Destiny's rarest item. I was pretty worried about crossing boundaries, so I sent a mini video explaining the context of my search and was lucky enough to get a response. Eric is fortunately still with us, and while this would normally be the part where I sit down with them to discuss what that experience was like, discussing things like this can be rather difficult. I didn't manage to hop on a call or record some footage of it, but honestly, just the fact that Bunny responded confirming Eric is still with us and still in possession of that unique exotic felt plenty great to me in order to share their story with you after 10 years in Destiny.
That's really cool that he's still with us and that, Bungie kept it as a very rare one-of-one type of thing. He actually gave us the honor of getting to use this, so I actually got to use the Fate of All Fools inside Destiny 1 and got to test it out and play with it a little bit. So it's very, very cool. And obviously, very amazing thing that Bungie did for them, given the circumstances.
Between this research and the chats that I had with St. Jude, I felt empowered to ask that if you did enjoy any section of this video, felt touched by any of the stories, or just have a moment to make a difference, I've left a donation link to St. Jude's Children's Hospital in the description. It's a direct link which is not affiliated with myself or Bungie. Now, to answer the question of what Destiny's rarest item is, well, I think the beauty of it is that we'll never really know. If Bungie released a $1 million charity emblem tomorrow, would that be it? If there was an achievement in the game that only one person in the world was able to complete, wouldn't that be it? What about the items that we can't even track? To me, the beauty is around the reason something's rare, not necessarily its ownership rate. As I said in the intro, this is my last ever Destiny video. I'm finally at peace with trying to make this game a career, and I'm ready to give my goodbye. Thank you to every single person who's ever watched one of my videos, whether it was leaving a comment, dropping a like, joining the Discord, sending me some messages about one that you liked. I've read every single one of them, and they all meant a lot, even if it was to roast me on my tier list rankings. From using a chalkboard teaching game mechanics to running my own version of Guardian games, from trying a brand new angle on build videos to documenting my journey learning the hardest challenges in Destiny, there's always been one thing in common: the ability to exercise my passion for teaching and storytelling through video editing. It's been one of the most challenging and fulfilling undertakings of my life, and I will remember it forever.
So there you have it, the quest for the most rare items in Destiny 2 from Castle Content. He does such incredible work making these videos. You can see all the effort that's put into this. I mean, this video is an hour and a half on his main channel, so do me a favor and click on this video and give a thumbs up for his video on his channel. Make sure you're subscribed to his channel. I don't know what he's doing in the future. He said that this is his last Destiny 2 video. Maybe he's moving on to other content. Maybe he'll come back at some point in time. Either way, he puts in such tremendous work to make these videos, so give him some love for doing this, and I really appreciate him allowing me to do this reaction video. That's a wrap on this one, though. Make sure to smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Later.